So I just got together a few friends and we sat round a pub one night with a blank sheet of paper and we said, how could we make the biggest possible difference to New Zealand? And simplicity is exactly what was on that sheet of paper. The problem was that when we wrote it down, you couldn't do it. We had to change the law, we had to write software systems, we had to get business partners, and that took 3.5 years, and well, almost 3.5 years, and we've been in business for 7. So we said, listen, if you want to make the biggest possible difference, 3 of the people around that table were managers of KiwiSaver schemes, and we said, make a big possible difference, go to the biggest pot of money. And the biggest pot of money that you can actually change in this country is KiwiSaver. It will be $200 billion by 2030, $200,000 million. In the finance industry, the technical term for that is a lot of wonga, right? It is a massive sandpit of money. And if you can make a tiny difference to a massive amount of money, you can make a huge difference to New Zealand. And the reason we knew we could make a tiny difference is this. In your lifetime, by the way, no figure you will see in this presentation is from us. It's all from third-party sources, a lot of them government sources. What you will spend in your lifetime on power is about $37,000. You'll spend about $36,000 on mobile phone charges. So does that number for KiwiSaver surprise you? $54,000. It is the largest household expense you will never hear of. And the reason is that only 3 KiwiSaver providers actually tell you what you pay in dollars and cents in fees every year. Most of them will tell you something called an administration fee, which is about $30. As I'll show you in a minute, the actual cost is a lot more. That law, by the way, is one of the laws we wanted to change, and it has been changed. So from next year, everyone will tell the truth, the whole truth. So we decided that we would do to KiwiSaver what Uber had done for transportation, what Airbnb had done for accommodation, and we just bring in a whole new business model. So on the left-hand side is pretty much how the financial services in New Zealand operates. It's a very old-fashioned model. Very high fees, amongst the highest in the world, in fact, right up there in KiwiSaver. Very high shareholder profits, costly advertising, billboards, TV ads and so on. Very shiny head offices, you only have to look at the skyline of Auckland to see that. And very expensive branches and commissions. We just travelled all the way through New Zealand. Every town we went through, the fanciest shop on the high street was a bank branch, recently refurbished. Who pays for that? We do. So we thought, let's just change the way we do the business. Let's do it non-profit. There is a really good example of that I'll tell you about in a minute. Charge the lowest fees, not lower, but the lowest fees. Let's talk about education. Let's take the mystery out of money and explain the very simple concepts that people need to know about money in very simple language. Let's run a virtual business because that's the way an increasing number of businesses are run, and you can do it because there is a machine that prints money, but there's no machine in our industry that you need to have. It's all, PCs and laptops in the cloud, and let's make it 100% online. So that's what we wanted to do. 7.5 months later we launched, and this is what we've done. Here are the fees of all the major KiwiSaver providers for someone who has a $30,000 balance. That is the average of our members at the moment. The average fee right here is $363. Our fee is $123. That means every year someone who had the same balance would be saving about $250 a year. What would happen if you had a lot more money in KiwiSaver? Because the fee differences change dramatically. When you finish, the average New Zealander will have slightly over $300,000. The fee differential will be an average of $3,400 is what you'll pay in fees on $300,000. We'll charge $960, so you'll save $2,517. Does that number surprise you? That's a return trip to London every year. How does that compound up over your lifetime? What does it actually mean? What is the big number? Well, the big number is this. The average fees, as I said, this is the actuaries working for the government who've provided these numbers. They are not ours. Average fee will be $54,700. Lifetime fees. That is for the average salary and the minimum contribution over your working life. Our fees, as they currently stand, are $19,000, so you save $35,700 in fees over your lifetime. Can anyone tell me what Albert Einstein said was the 8th wonder of the world? Compounding interest. So those fee savings stay in your account and compound up to $65,800. That is what the average Kiwi will be, how much richer they will be having their KiwiSaver with Simplicity. Once again, not our numbers, those from the actuaries who work for the government. We know this is true, or will be true, or very likely to be true, because in Australia, where contributions are higher, more like 12%, this number, the difference between the lowest fee provider and the average provider, is $250,000, $250,000. Fees really matter. That is why when we set up a non-profit KiwiSaver, purely designed to make you wealthier, we focused on fees, because they're the things that matter. That is like a 20% pay rise in retirement. But have a look at it this way. What does $65,000 buy you? It buys you this. You guys must be a bit cold. That usually gets a better laugh. So, where I come from, Sunnyvale in West Auckland, these things really matter. $65,000 is the difference between being warm or cold in winter, between having enough food on your plate or not, for the working poor or those people who live in poverty. It is a big deal. So when we talked about making the biggest difference possible in New Zealand, what would happen if we could save every New Zealander $65,000 over their working lifetime, and if we had 100,000 members, just 3.7% market share? That means we'd be putting $6.5 billion back into the pockets of Kiwis. Huge numbers, yeah? $6,500 million. If we had 10% market share, it'd be over $17 billion. That is the power of compounding interest, and that's what happens when you make a small difference to a phenomenal amount of money. That money would otherwise go in profit, mostly to the Australian banks and insurance companies, and forever leave New Zealand. So we thought, blank sheet of paper, that's the big difference we can make to the average KiwiSaver. What can we do for charities? And we thought, you know what? Of that fee we charge you, that lowest fee, let's give 15% of it to charity every year, and let's use the same principle about it compounding up over time to give to charities. And consequently, if we have 10% market share by 2030, we'll be giving $10 million a year to charities. We'll be one of the bigger charities in New Zealand. Why do we do this? Because it's unusual for a KiwiSaver to give money to charities. 3 reasons, really. 1, it's just a good idea. It's great that the money will go to charities. Secondly is, think about what would happen if we can go to charities and say, because that year I spent in those charities, it was always fundraising, always fundraising. It's so hard to raise money for charities. We say to charities, go and plan long term. Let's dream. You go and do what you do well and do more of it, or do things you never dreamed you could do of, and we'll find the money. And that would be awesome. The third reason is the financial industry ain't famous for giving money to charity. We want to set the example, because we want to be able to say, if we're the lowest cost KiwiSaver provider and we can still afford to give 15% of our revenue to charities, why cannot you, big rich provider? So there'll be a bit of naming and shaming going on. You heard it here first, folks. It's going to happen. Blank sheet of paper again. Why don't we just invest the way Kiwis want to? So we've eliminated all nuclear weapons, all tobacco, all landmines, all cluster mines from every one of our funds. They don't exist anywhere, and they won't. Our funds are invested very simply. We call ourselves a KiwiSaver manager. We just launched some other investment funds. The 3 KiwiSaver funds we have, growth, balanced and conservative. You get your government contributions and your employer contributions, and it's a wonderful thing. It's KiwiSaver. We've also set up some parallel investment funds. They are growth, balanced and conservative. They look exactly like our KiwiSaver funds. They're invested exactly the same way. They have exactly the same fees. But the difference is you don't get those government employer subsidies, but you do get access to your money at any time. So every one of our funds has several things in common. All of them have over 5,000 investments in 23 countries. Very diversified. The one thing I've learned in life, folks, is that investing, and I've been doing it for a long time now, is the one thing you get for free is diversification. It's the one thing you should be in your portfolios, and it's the one thing you don't have to pay more for. The overseas investments are managed by Vanguard. We do the investing locally here, and we do it in what we call a passive style, which means that we buy all of the shares in a share market index. So if it's the New Zealand Stock Exchange Index, the NZX 50, we buy all 50 companies and we buy them according to how big they are. The overseas investments are managed the same way by Vanguard. Has anyone heard of Vanguard? There's a few nods in the room. Vanguard are the second largest asset manager in the world. They manage $6.5 trillion, $6,500 billion. They own 7% of every listed company in the developed world. And they actually own 2% of every company in New Zealand. Not that many people would know that. Do you know how much money Vanguard, they've been in business for 40 years. Do you know how much money they made last year? Zero. Bagel. They're a non-profit. They are a massive example of how successful non-profit fund management can be in the world, and we have modelled ourselves on Vanguard, and we are working with Vanguard to bring that model to New Zealand. All of your investments are always held by the public trust, the government-owned trustee. Why have we chosen public trust? They're the most conservative trustee. We never touch your money. When your money gets transferred into Simplicity, it actually goes to an account run by the public trust, owned by the public trust for your benefit. When the investments are made, the investments come back and sit in that same account. We can never touch the money. It's the safest way to be, and it's one of the beautiful things about KiwiSaver. We've got a few users here. Is it easy to use? Yeah? Thank you very much. I'm very pleased you said that. It takes, on average, 1 minute 53 seconds to switch. It's all online, just simplicity.kiwi. The really cool thing about it is once you push send, we do all the rest. You don't have to contact your supplier or anyone. The money will arrive. We'll look after it. So how have we been doing? This is our scorecard. This is what I dream of at night, folks. When I go to sleep, I dream of this, and when I wake up, I hope these numbers are bigger. There are two numbers here that are kind of interesting. We have $120 million under management. We were expecting that to be $25 million on our first year's anniversary. 7 months in, it's about 5 times that. So we're doing very well. We have 4,670 members. It's actually about 5,000 by the time you process the people who've applied, and we've yet to receive the money. But these are the two numbers that really matter. We're now saving $1.1 million a year in fees for our members. Over $20,000 a week now that would otherwise go to Australia is here, and we're giving over $1,000 a week to charity. Now, what's really cool, what excites me about those numbers are not that how big they are, but that Simplicity is still only 0.2 of 1% of the KiwiSaver market. We are tiny. When we get to be 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 times larger than this, these numbers will be enormous. And my aim is to have at least 2 zeros on the end of any of those within the next few years. So folks, that's Simplicity. It's really a pretty simple story. Thank you very much.